week's episode of Stardust Crusaders, they decide to ditch the horror cliches, and it's time to jump right into another one. This week, Jotaro and his friends go on the Fantastic Voyage! If you guys have watched movies or TV or read books over the course of the last 50 or so years, you've probably at least heard of the story of the Fantastic Voyage, which has been parodied by everything. Essentially, it's just about going into the human body and going on an adventure. And this week, they're tackling it JoJo style, so you know it's just gonna be crazy! The main story this week is that Jotaro and his friends have just arrived in Pakistan when suddenly Enya starts freaking out and all of these worms start exploding out of her face. And this is where we learn she actually had one of Dio's flesh buds inside of her body. And this is when we're finally introduced to the new stand user this week, another one of Dio's goons, by the name of Steely Dan. This is another reference to the classic band itself, and I'm not exactly a huge, expert on Steely Dan. In fact, the only song I think of theirs I can even remember is that one that goes like, "Ricky, don't lose that number. You don't have to call nobody else." So what exactly are Steely Dan's powers and what does his stand do? Well, it's actually known as the Lovers, and it takes the form of this little disgusting mutated Jeff Goldblum fly, and it actually goes into your body and it connects you to the actual user. So if you actually kick the other guy in the shin, whoever has the stand inside of their body is going to feel that pain. It's kind of like the voodoo doll effect, and it actually really reminds me of the character of Hidan from Naruto, where he would inflict pain upon himself and the other person would feel it along with him. And because of that, Jotaro and his friends cannot attack Steely Dan. And that's where one of the best parts of the episodes comes in, because the rest of the episode is just Polnareff, Kakyoin, and Joseph trying to figure out how to get this stand out of Joseph's body. And then you have Jotaro, who is hanging out with Steely Dan, and Jotaro is going to murder this guy. You can tell how much he wants to hurt him. Not only is he fucking with his family, but the fact that this entire episode, Steely Dan is just constantly berating JoJo, getting free punches in, and literally humiliating the guy by making him form a human bridge that he can walk across just because he doesn't want to get his damn feet wet. Steely Dan is going to be destroyed in ways that I cannot imagine, and I cannot wait to see what Jotaro is going to do to this guy. The other part of the episode that's cool, though, is that Joseph is able to use his Hermit Purple into a TV so they can actually see the stand inside of his brain, and he gets a great reaction out of that. But suddenly we actually get to learn that you can actually make your stand shrink down to a very, very small microscopic size, but you have to concentrate, and it takes a lot of power. So the Hierophant Green and the Silver Chariot are able to go into Joseph's body, a la the Fantastic Voyage, and they're able to go in there and try and find the stand. But we don't really get to see the end result of that, and that's the end of this week's episode. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders? I really liked it. A lot. I love this whole series, mostly for its ridiculous style. But what I really loved about this one is I thought, oh boy, here we go, another big horror reference, which is what I was kind of expecting. But I love that they're giving us our own take of the Fantastic Voyage. I guarantee you guys have probably seen that and you probably don't even realize it. There have been a million cartoons that have parodied this thing, so it only is appropriate that JoJo would finally decide to go on one of the most bizarre adventures of all time. There it is. Otherwise, the action this week, there really wasn't too much of it. Basically, it was all about Steely Dan just sort of tricking everybody. And what is interesting about his stand, and he actually mentions this, is that it's actually really weak. He's not a good fighter at all. The reason he's able to be such a threat against his opponents is because he sort of uses one of them as like a scapegoat, and they're not going to be able to attack him. So it's kind of cheap how he fights. But that's what I love about it. I love the build-up to it. You could just see Jotaro seething with rage as the episode is going on. But he can't punch this guy, he can't hurt him because it's going to end up hurting Joseph. And he actually did get one good punch against the guy, which could have nearly killed Joseph, and I thought that was pretty crazy, but it was a nice little shock to see that happen. Enya getting killed at the beginning was actually kind of shocking. I thought she was going to be more of like Dio's right-hand gal, but apparently that's not the case. For Dio, I'm guessing goons are just really, really expendable, and he can just pick them up whenever he wants. And, you know, he's so charismatic, he can get anybody into his group. And I'm sure we haven't even seen half of what he has thrown at them yet. Otherwise, I really liked this episode. The pacing was a little off, especially in the first half of the episode. There was a lot of explanation. However, there were some funny scenes, and there was one really random scene at the beginning of the episode when they're trying to show you how to buy doner kebab. So there it is. They show you how to haggle when you're in Pakistan, so I guess that's pretty useful. But otherwise, this was just sort of an okay episode that had a lot of nice tension building into it, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week when we finally get to see what Hierophant Green and Silver Chariot are actually going to do when they're fighting against this thing inside of Joseph Joestar's head. So I'm going to give this week's episode an 8 out of 10. I just really liked this one. I thought it had a lot of great funny moments, and there was a little bit of action, and I love the new story that they finally just introduced. So check it out, guys. Pretty exciting episode. Thank you guys for watching my review today. Before you guys leave, please hit that like button so you can give this video a thumbs up, and please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders. Can you not wait to see Jotaro wail on Steely Dan? I know I can't. And remember, guys, you can also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews, and you can also check us out on Facebook and on Twitter. So, guys, that concludes my review today. Super Kami Guru 9000. Peace out, dudes.